With each new entry into the MCU, the science of the multiverse becomes more thoroughly developed and understood by not only the audience, but the characters within the multiverse as well. While the first formal venture into the multiversal science occurred in Loki, when the timeline broke and splintered into what we know today, there is one glaring outlier that took place long before Loki. In Spider-Man Far From Home, we are introduced to Quentin Beck, who is posing as a multiversal refugee from an adjacent universe. And while this shouldn't be a big deal, seeing as he is lying, he is able to accurately identify that this universe is Earth 616. Despite being a fraud, this one piece of integral information was correct with very little explanation ever given then or since. So how was Mysterio able to do this without actually having any knowledge of the multiverse? Was it just blind luck, or is there something else going on behind the scenes? Well, stick with us today, watchers of the Marvel Multiverse, as we believe that we have solved exactly how Quentin Beck knew that the mainline MCU was Earth 616. First, it's important to identify where these names come from, and we know that the Baxter Foundation on Earth 838 is the preeminent organization responsible for naming universes and designating identities to variants. Christine Palmer states that they are the leading experts on multiversal science, and she addressed the primary MCU timeline, Strange's timeline of origin, as Earth 616. So then, where would Beck from our world 616 get this information? We know that Beck is actually brilliant, and although he is mentally unstable, he was smart enough to work for Tony Stark, who led one of the most technologically advanced corporations on our Earth. He pioneered the augmented reality technology that Stark showed off in Civil War, and was able to engineer the entire illusion of a whole superhero with his technological prowess, showing that his intelligence is truly remarkable, even if this is something we don't normally think about when concerning the Mysterio character. Since this Beck is highly intelligent, then it's reasonable to conclude that his multiversal variants are as well, and several of them might have even gone on to work for the prestigious scientific communities in their home universes. One specific variant, that being his Earth 838 counterpart, might have even worked for the Baxter Foundation under Christine Palmer and her team. And if this was the case, then this Beck would have a privy insight into the naming processes of different universes. He could have been on the front lines of the identification process, and this may have given his variant the possible insight that he needed to construct this ruse. So then, does that mean that Beck can travel between universes and actually contacted his multiversal self? Well, not exactly. In the Multiverse of Madness, we learn that dreams are windows into the lives of various multiversal counterparts from other realities. Every time Beck went to sleep and had a dream, he was seeing into the lives of his multiversal variants, one of which might have been his version who resided on 838. This version who was naming various universes. For our Beck, this means that he could have had a dream wherein he was a leading multiversal researcher working with Christine Palmer and discussing the science of multiversal travel, and this could have been the inspiration for the character of Mysterio that he would later go on to create. He even identifies his own fake reality as Earth 833, which is very close to 838, as perhaps he misremembered slightly, seeing as this was a dream to him, and remembering exact details of dreams can prove to be tricky, or he could have just changed it simply because he wanted to. The primary reason we don't believe he saw into the life of his 833 counterpart is simply because we know nothing about 833, while we do know that Earth 838 is actively naming other realities. The likelihood of Earth 833 also naming realities and also deciding that our Earth is 616 is extremely low, so it makes more sense that he visited 838 and changed the name for some reason, be it that he didn't remember it correctly or he just wanted to. So then the next question is, why would the inhabitants of Earth 838 mention Earth 616 in their research? For this, there are two main explanations. First off, we know that Earth 616 is arguably one of the most important universes within this sector of the multiverse. It was their version of Loki who killed He Who Remains, and thus they are responsible for the birth of the multiverse as a whole. Not only this, but they were the core timeline that initially splintered, and it could be said that they existed at the center of the multiverse. A world this important would likely be a part of a regular conversation between Christine and her co-workers, and this might be one of the universes of interest for them to devote more energy and time towards studying. This is to say that if they were to casually mention an alternate reality in passing, it's possible that 616 is the likeliest option. Since Beck has a notorious ego, he could have adopted the title of the most important universe, believing himself to be at the center of the multiversal importance in this version of his dream. and he simply could have designated this reality Earth 616 because he heard it mentioned in a conversation while he was dreaming. Another explanation, albeit a far less likely one that we still want to explore, is that Christine and her team are working to study the connective tissues between universes. We know that this Doctor Strange studied dreamwalking, and gave Reed Richards immense insight into the science behind the barriers between realities through his experimentation, and this is something they've been researching intently. Reed is well informed of incursions, and likely would have studied how dreamwalking, and dreams in general, interact with the tether between realities in order to better understand how to respond to threats of an incursion. Since Reed Richards likely knows that dreams connect variants across the multiverse, then Christine and her team likely would as well. It's perfectly reasonable to believe that he kept this team informed of his discoveries, and they could be studying dreams themselves. This might mean that on Earth 838, they could be discovered a way of monitoring not only the dreams of their researchers in order to track where they go and when they sleep, but they could, in theory, have a way of detecting when a multiversal variant is dreaming about the inhabitants of Earth 838. If Earth 616 Beck had a detectable presence on Earth 838, then who is to say that it couldn't be traced back to his original home reality? If there is some sort of energy that can be detected by Beck's consciousness passing into the multiverse and piercing the veil into the universe, then his variant might have worked to find the source of this elusive and unwitting spy. He and Christine might have discovered that this variant is in fact living on Earth 616, and they mentioned this while Beck was still dreaming and could hear them. From the perspective of our Beck, however, he would have been scheming for a way to get back at Stark, since his termination of course, and could have been exploring different ideas before landing on the idea of Mysterio. Then, one day, he has a dream where he is responsible for studying the multiverse, and when he wakes up, this gives him an idea. He takes inspiration from this dream, only instead of being a scientist, he is instead a soldier of the future, and a sole survivor of a dying universe. He can tell the world the story that he constructed from his dream, tweaking details to suit his agenda or to account for misremembering how specific details played out. But the designation of Earth 616 is one key detail that he remembered correctly, and that is why we believe Quentin Beck knew that he was in fact on Earth 616, something that should have been impossible. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of our theory? Do you think Beck learned about Earth 616's name through his multiversal self? And if so, what else do you think he learned from this dream? Which parts do you think he misremembered, and which parts of this theory make the most sense given what we know? As always, my friends, stay tuned on the Marvelous Wave as we'll continue to break down all of the lore and updates in the MCU. And as always, hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and I hope that you're having a great day.